Hey, what's up, Joe Joe in the Morning family? Hope everybody's having a really, really good day. I want to talk to you about high expectations. You know, Autumn and I, we have a mentoring program, and a huge portion of people come in with a really good, strong mindset in ministry, business, life. And some people, they come in so we can help, build their mindset. And a lot of times when people come in, our first call, we're talking to them about, hey, what's going on in your life? Tell me about yourself. What are you doing? And then usually I'm like, hey, so what are you believing for? Like what are you dreaming about? I don't know. Well, well, I don't know. Never really thought about it. Stuff like that. I'm like, oh, no. We got to get some high expectations. What are you believing for? Like to start a ministry, to start a business? Do you ever dream of getting promotion at work? Taking your family on a dream vacation, maybe having money, put back in like a savings or a certain amount, building a dream home. What are you believing for? What are you expecting for? What type of prophetic words do you have? All of a sudden, people just start dreaming again. Well, that's what I want to do with you today. Well, what are you expecting? What are you dreaming about? What are you believing for? Like whenever I go and preach in different cities, conferences, conventions, revivals, whatever it may be, I love right before I preach, I sometimes kind of scan the crowd with my eyes and I start believing. I start imagining, seeing salvations, rededications, people being healed, couples that came in fighting, reach over and grab hands. I believe for restoration. That's what I believe for. So every time I do anything in life, I'm expecting something. Like I got this one restaurant in Texarkana, one of the best steaks I've ever had in my life. They're almost as good as the steaks that I cook on the grill. But when I go, I have high expectations and they never let me down. What are you expecting? What are you believing for? What are you dreaming about? They say that when people retire, if they don't get involved in something else, they die within 3 years. Like my mom, the church she goes to, she is very involved. The church has, I think, 10 different type of groups, and she's in 11 of them. She's involved. She's doing something. A lot of people. I had a gentleman who has he works at this job, and as soon as he retires, he said he feels the Lord says he's going to take a small church, kind of a country church where he lives, and he's going to pastor it because he'll have a retirement. And the church has a few people that's been there for years. I said, man, that's phenomenal, man. And so people are always expecting, I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. What are you believing? What are you expecting? We got to dream big. Like when my wife and I, we love sowing financially. Like we give to widows. We give to different ministries. We give to feeding children ministries, And like when we sow, we're expecting, like whenever we start sowing, we started sowing recently into a Feed the Children ministry. And so we did some research. Great organization. We ask how many meals does this provide? What type of food does this provide? Like, we want to get so excited knowing that kids are eating because of our donations. And then some of my friends that I know in ministry sow to that same place, and they've, been there, talk about it. And so it's just really good. Like, I'm an excited person. And I think that helps me so much in life because I'm always expecting the best case scenario to happen. Best case scenario. And so I'm just really believing that you're going to step into a place to where you can think higher, think bigger. Proverbs 23:18, surely there is a future and your hope will not be cut off. Think about that. Surely there is a future. If you got breath in your lungs, let me tell you right now, surely there is a future for you, and your hope shall not be cut off. I was reading a prophetic word by Dr. Mike Maiden recently, and he said, you're going to see people who get more accomplished in 2 days 2 days than in the last 20 years. He said, you're going to see things restored to you in 2 days that were stolen over the last 20 years. Quick recompense. Quick coming back. Expect. High expectations. Believing for the things of the Lord to come to pass. I remember my wife has an aunt that she's now with the Lord, but I remember she got a bad doctor's report, and you got 2 months to live. Then 6 months later, they were like, seriously, you got 2 months to live. 6 months later, look, you got 2 months to live. She said, look, I got one more great grandkid that I want to see get out of high school. Then I'll go. We prayed and prayed and prayed, and she just kept living. Finally, the doctor's like, we're not saying nothing else, okay? We're not. And when the last great grandkid got out of high school, she was like, hey, you know what? She said, quit praying. I'm ready to go. She was an older age and just lived a, full life, good life. And she had said, I'm ready. But the thing was, she had this crazy expectation to live past the doctor's report. Nothing in the natural pointed to her living over 2 months. And it went 6 months to 6 months to 6 months to 6 months. She just kept on living. Expectations. Your expectations will keep you going. I remember one time I was going through some physical stuff. I mean, really, really rough physical stuff. But I remember my girls were young, and they were so excited about some things in their life. They had just entered junior high, and they had their junior high activities going on in sports and different things. And physically, it was rough. But I had high expectations that I wasn't going to miss a game. I wasn't going to miss a thing. And I didn't. Physically, it didn't look like I would, but I kept going. I remember when our kids were really young and finances were really rough, and I wanted to take my family on a little vacation, and it was rough. I'm not talking about like now we'll go to the beach, like no big deal, like for a week. And sometimes, we'll go multiple vacations a year. Back then, you go 3 days to like a city, 2.5 hours away. It's a big deal. But I had high expectations that every year, as things would grow, that we could take them somewhere nicer and build memories and pay for it before we go. And so you got to have expectations. You got to get your expectations up. I remember when I was younger, I would watch these guys online, watch these amazing ministers who were just like giants in the faith. And one day I was watching these generals, and the Holy Spirit said, you're going to preach with them one day. And I'm like, whatever, Lord. I'll put my expectations out there on that. I just want to be in the room with these guys. And about 6 months later, I was invited to speak 2-3 different times with different people that just blew my mind that I would ever get to speak with. And then had some of them come preach for me at our church and ministry. And I had my expectations up there. I'm telling you, where your expectations are, your life will follow. Your life will lead. I remember I was at a business conference. It was about 3 years ago. It was at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. I remember I told one of my friends, I said, you know what, I'm new to this business, but I'm gonna speak here at this event next year. He said, you know what, I bet you probably will. I said, I will. 13, 15,000 people here. I'll speak, and I'll bring glory to the Lord when I do it. Next year, they called me and said, hey, I think there was 10,000 people when my wife and I spoke, but they asked us to speak at the State Farm Arena at our one of our businesses company's events. I'm like, okay. And so, we're health coaches with Optavia, and we got to speak at the Optavia National Convention. But I had an expectation. I remember the first time I saw my wife, the second I saw her, I knew she was my wife. And I remember there was a few guys there, and I said, hey, man, this might sound crazy. I'm going to marry that girl right there. They said, you ever talk to her? I said, no. They said, you don't have a shot at her. I said, yeah, she's going to marry me. I told another guy, like, man, I'm going to marry that girl Autumn right there. He's like, bro, you don't have a chance with a girl like that. I said, dude, I'm telling you, that's going to be my wife. I had prettiest girl I ever seen. And all these young girls at the church she was at, they would flock to her because she had a discipleship group. And I was just like, yeah, I'm going to marry her. I had high expectations. Most people are unsatisfied because they hit a low mark in life. They're afraid to set their mark high. Set your mark high. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go for something God has for you. Don't be afraid. There's been times in my life, my dad would say, son, if you're ever scared or nervous about doing something, if you can just step over that threshold, you'll be happy that you did it. And so I remember I was little. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. And my dad bought this horse. This dude was bad. And a grown man got on this horse and it bucked that man off. And my dad had a bunch of his friends at our house around. He said, any other men want to man up and get on this horse? And all these guys looked around. He said, son, why don't you get on this horse? And I was like, put my saddle on. And so we put my saddle on this horse. I was a little kid. And I got ready to get on the horse. And I was nervous. I was scared. I was probably 8, 9 years old. This horse just bucked a grown man off. And my dad leaned down and he said, son, tonight when you lay down and put your head on your pillow, even if you get bucked off, which you won't, you'll be glad that you tried. And all these other men, they're little boys, and you're a little boy, but you stepped up to be a man. But if you ride this horse, you're going to become a man today. I said, yes, sir, Dad. That horse jumped off. I thought he really bucked. He probably didn't really buck that hard, but he took him a few good hops, and I rode him through it. And man, I think I got my man card that day. 8, 9 years old, rode that bucking horse. But for just a brief moment right before I got on, I had this high expectation that I was going to be able to do something that grown men couldn't do, and I was just a kid. I've always had that mindset that, why not? If I pray big and prayer works, why not? Why not? I remember when these guys would tell me there's no way Autumn would even date me, much less marry me. I remember what I said, well, she has to marry somebody. Why not me? When God called me to preach, I used to stutter, didn't like being in front of people, sure didn't like being behind a camera. And I said, well, God, if you need somebody, why not me? High expectations. Let's get some high expectations and let's go for it. I mean, what do you have to lose? Just throw caution to the wind and go for everything that God has called you to do. Okay? Love you guys, and I will see y'all tomorrow.